And welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I'm psyched to have you here. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the things I think that plagues most small businesses out there. And the reason why most entrepreneurs really struggle to get traction, to keep traction, and to keep scaling. So if you're just starting a business, you're at like 5 figures and you're trying to get to 6 or 7 or 8 figures, you're going to be limited in how quickly and how well you can scale based off of the quality of your systems. And in my experience from just kind of looking at the lay of the land and talking to a lot of new entrepreneurs, the reality is that most businesses are just one resignation or one sick day away from like complete catastrophe. And what I mean by that is they maybe have like one linchpin employee. Maybe that's you as like the owner, the person who's like wearing all the hats and doing all the things. And if that person was ever to leave for any reason, well, they're taking all the knowledge that they have inside their head along with them. And as a result, like you as the owner, if this isn't you, maybe you have like one key hire and you're like, that person does everything. They kind of run the company, or they run that one particular wing of my company. And I don't really know how I'd replace them. As soon as you start using terms like that person's irreplaceable, you are going to start losing sleep at night, because that is not a good place to be. Because the truth of the matter is we all die, right? Like things happen all the time. People move on. They go through catastrophe in their life. And so you're very fragile if you think that you have somebody on your team who's irreplaceable. And maybe that's you. Maybe you're the person who's going on vacation and you're still fielding all the phone calls from customers and from employees because they don't know how to do the thing on their own. And so this is what I've seen is holding most entrepreneurs back from like really getting to the place where they've built a business that is thriving, that is growing without them, and ultimately like gives the owner themselves like a lot of satisfaction and peace of mind, knowing like I have this asset that's working for me and I'm not just grinding away at the millstone, so to speak. So what I want to share with you guys today is the 8-figure blueprint. This is these are 3 systems that we use at Invictus Capital that have helped us scale to $70 million of assets under management over the last 3 years. These are not all the systems by any means, but these are 3 key systems that I think will help you make that transition from being the linchpin entrepreneur, where everything comes down to you doing all the stuff, or to being the vulnerable entrepreneur, like vulnerable to your employees because they have all the knowledge and you don't have anything. So what we're going to talk about is how to create your operations playbook, a collaborative hub, and a sharing station. And we use 3 softwares. I'm going to be talking about those in this episode today. But just so you guys know, I did a blog post. This was a newsletter article that went out to the hyper-focused entrepreneur newsletter subscribers about a month or 2 ago. And you can still access that at anthonyvicino.com/blueprint. So go check out the blog article. There's photos in there of our exact systems, how they're structured, how they're laid out, so you can get a better visual. So if I don't go into enough detail here in the pod, then you're definitely going to want to check that out. So number 1, your operations playbook. So the truth is, reality, in the beginning, when you're first starting your business, like you're the person that has to do everything. You're going to be doing sales, admin, marketing, fulfillment, product design, all of it. And that's because you don't have any systems, you don't have the team, you don't have the resources to be able to afford the team, right? And so you're really not able to start growing. And at this point, most people struggle because it's lack of capital and it's lack of help. And so you're doing everything. That's just the reality of the situation. But your goal is to get out of that place as quickly as possible and get to the level where you can start bringing on high quality help to start pushing that flywheel, to help you push that flywheel faster and faster and faster. Now, if you're good at what you do, which is not an assumption I want to necessarily make, but if you want to be profitable and do well, you're going to have to get good enough. And so, in the beginning, you're probably going to suck, and that's okay. It takes time. But let's say you get to that base level of good enough. Well, the thing that's going to be holding you back at that point are 2 things. Like, you have a business that's making money, it's coming in the door, you're profitable, but you're going to have to overcome a psychological limitation and a systemic limitation. And the psychological limitation is actually probably the harder one for most people, So what I mean by the psychological limitation is, let's say you now have this business, it's profitable, you got the flywheel going, you were doing all the things, and you now have money coming in, and you're starting to realize like, hey, we got this thing. Well, what allowed you to get to that place in the beginning is that you have to be scrappy. You have to make every penny really work for you. And so you were rewarded for frugality, for your MacGyverness, for your resourcefulness. Well, now you have to start to transition, right? Now you need to be able to invest back into the company, into bringing on great talent and great help. And that can be a very hard thing to do psychologically, because you might feel, I'm not ready yet. Now's not the time, because you've been operating in kind of like this scarcity, operating on a razor's edge mentality for so long. And now that you have to transition that from, hoarding money to now reinvesting the money, that can be very hard. And this isn't just, I'm not just talking about business here. This is also in your personal life, right? Like for me, I know when I was getting out of that van 10 years ago, like I was poor and like I had no money, but even after I was making 6 figures, 7 figures a year, like I still really struggled to spend money. Like it was something that gave me a lot of anxiety, to the point that when I would build a business and I would have a partner, I would say, okay, you're in charge of the finances and paying bills, because that causes me stress. Even when I know we have the money in the bank, like paying bills just stressed me out, because I always felt like, oh, I'm never going to see this money again. So it's a psychological limitation, both in your personal life and in your business life. In your business life, it's very problematic, because there's only ever 2 times to hire somebody. You either hire too soon or too late. The problem with hiring too soon is it costs you money. The problem with hiring too late is it costs you opportunity. Now, when you measure these 2 things, like one of them can be quantified on a spreadsheet, right? Like how much you're going to spend in money to bring on that new hire. The opportunity cost, though, can't be quantified in the same way. And so typically what ends up happening then is we overweight the thing that we can see, that number on the spreadsheet. Okay, if I hire this person, it's going to cost me $50,000 a year. And that informs our decision, not, okay, by comparison, how much am I leaving on the table by not bringing them in? Oh, if I brought in another person, we could double our revenue in the next year. Well, if you double your revenue, what's that mean in total profit? Well, we'd make $300,000. Okay, well, you've just passed up $300,000 because of $50,000 of expense, right? But because we don't go through that mental calculus, we overweight what we do see. In my experience, because there's only ever 2 times to hire, too soon and too late, like hiring too soon costs you money, too late costs you opportunity. My experience has been that hiring too late is always more expensive. And so you should probably always hire a little bit sooner than you feel ready and comfortable. And so if you can overcome that psychological barrier, now you have to overcome the systemic barrier, which is, again, because in the beginning you were doing everything, you didn't really need to create systems and processes, because you knew what you were doing and what was the point of documenting it, right? Like, you know how to do it. You don't need to document it for yourself in the future, right? You're just going to pick it up and do it again because you remember how to do it. And that will serve you well in the beginning because you're just doing everything. And the hard part here is, as soon as you get to the point where you've reached enough scale where you're ready to start bringing on other people, is one, you don't have the time to bring them in and train them properly. So what you'll probably end up doing is you'll bring them in, you'll kind of show them a couple of your haphazard systems that you've kind of cobbled together, you kind of show them, and they're going to do it, and it's going to take them longer than you expect. It's going to come back with less quality than you expect, and it's just going to overall really frustrate you. So you're going to get to the point where, like, I can do this better, I can do it better, faster on my own. I'm just going to do it myself. And so you get rid of that person. And it wasn't their fault. It was your lack of systems, your lack of processes, your lack of training, your onboarding, all of it. So the big question that you have to answer is then, when is the right time? Like, when is the right time to start building those systems and processes? Well, the answer is right now. Right now, when it's just you on the team, like, now is the time to start documenting that stuff, because if you can't make time for it now, you won't be able to make time for it later, especially once you have that new hire coming in. It is just not going to happen. And it reminds me of that really famous quote, which is, if you don't have the time to do it right now, when are you going to have the time to fix it? Right? So if you don't have the time to do it right, when are you going to have the time to fix it? And the truth is, like, you're not. And the time is never going to be any, you're not going to have more time. Like, you're not going to be ever any less busy than you currently are. And so what you have to do is you have to find a way to balance the current needs of the business against the future needs of the business. And this is like the difference between, feeding yourself every day. You probably, you're going to prioritize that, because without food, you don't last very long. But you also got to be brushing your teeth and taking care of your long-term health, and right? Because if you don't, then you're going to get down the road a couple years and you're going to have a lot of issues. And so you need to find a way to carve out the time now, early on, and lay the foundation so that you can bring the team in later. And this is where we get to the idea of the operations playbook. For us at Invictus, we use a software called Notion, which is just a very powerful database. It's a way of framing all of our different systems and processes. If you go over, again, to anthonyvicino.com/blueprint, you can check out exactly how we laid this out. It's very simple. But what we try to do is we try to document every single role and every single responsibility inside the company, so that if anybody was ever sick or got hit by a bus, God forbid, like, we could bring somebody in off the street, we could hand them this operations playbook, and they could do pretty much any job in the company. Doesn't mean they're going to do it well, but they could do it. And with time, with repetition, they can do it better and improve at it. So this is a living, breathing document, and everybody's responsibility in the company is to continually be improving it and try to make the company better as a result. This is very, very difficult, because you're going to get caught up in the day-to-day actions of like the grind, and it's going to be very hard to like make time to prioritize these systems and processes, but it's critical that you do, because if you don't, then again, you're going to have key man risk to key employees, and you're going to be stuck working in the company yourself. So here's my simple 4-step process for getting your operations playbook off the ground. Number 1, you got to track. So create an activity log. I want you to, at the top of every hour for 2 weeks, log everything that you did in that previous hour. And over that 2-week period, you're going to look back and you're going to start to see like all the recurring things that you're doing. Now, I want you to take that, and step 2 is, we record this somewhere. We put it into Notion, into Asana, into Google Drive, wherever. Like, you need to document it somewhere. So record that information. Step 3 is, now that we have all our tasks that you're doing on a recurring basis, we need to rank them in terms of the things that are very high priority, high value tasks versus low value tasks. Now, the 4th part is document. And what we want to do is we want to document these tasks, like create step-by-step checklists on how to do them in reverse order of importance. And that might be counterintuitive, but instead of systematizing the most important things first, we're going to systematize the least important things. The reason for that is because those tend to be the easier things to systematize, easier to outsource. And so in the beginning, your first hire are probably going to be people who can just take those low value tasks off of your plate, so that it frees you up to spend more time on the high value tasks. And then after time, as you start, outsourcing more and more of those low value tasks, all that you then have left are the high value tasks. And that's when you're going to start bringing in really high value people. So that's number 1. That is our operations playbook. The second system that we're going to build out is our collaboration hub. Now, the thing is, as your team expands, so too will the complexity of communication that needs to occur. Because when there's just you don't need to communicate with anybody. You have all the information. Perfect. As soon as there's another person, now the two of you need to stay on the same page. But this isn't super hard typically, because every time you're in the same room and have a conversation, both of you are privy to it. No, but the thing is, things get really complicated really quickly as soon as you add a 3rd, 4th, and 5th person to the equation. Because as soon as there's 3 people, well, if person 1 and person 2 have a conversation in the hallway, well, then person 3 wasn't there. And if person 3 talks to person 1 later, then person 2 didn't hear about it, right? So very quickly, the nodes of communication expand at this geometric rate. And it can get downright problematic, because when we have poor communication channels, it slows down our company and it increases our error rates. And both of these things are death knells for a company. So to avoid this, you need to have a place where the team can collaborate in a single resource. And so what we like to use is Google Drive for our sheets and documents and images, things like that, where we need to go in there and multiple people need to be looking and using the same tool simultaneously. We can make notes in there. Everybody can stay on the same page. Full transparency, like Google Drive is such a great resource. It's not free, but it's practically free for what you're getting. Like we ran all of Escape Climbing through Google Drive. That was like a mid 7-figure company. We ran it entirely through Google Drive. So it's entirely possible. And I know people who run even way bigger businesses just using Google Drive. Now, it's not the thing that we use exclusively. We really like Notion because it's a better database. It's better from a searchability perspective for an operations playbook. But Google Drive is very, very powerful for collaborating on documents and making sure that like the things that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, that we're all staying on the same page. And so you can, again, go back to that article that I mentioned on anthonyvicino.com/blueprint. You can see exactly how we use this as a team. It's very, very powerful. Now, the last thing then, that was for internal communications, right? So the first thing, that the operations playbook, that's all about like getting all the systems and processes identified so that we can onboard and train. We can keep everybody up to speed, and so that there's no vulnerabilities in the company. Step 2 is the collaboration hub, is making sure our internal communications are tight. Step 3, or the third framework that we're going to use, the third system, is to make sure that our external communications are tight. Now, the reason we don't use Google Drive for external communications is I've found that it's not great from like a secure sharing perspective. The upload speeds are really slow for certain types of media. And then just managing permissions is a pain in the butt. So I don't like to use Google Drive for external communications. We use it only for internal processes. For external communications to like vendors, suppliers, customers, all sorts of things like that, we're using Dropbox. And that's a really powerful, simple tool when we need to share marketing collateral, a video, or if there's like a spreadsheet or something like that. Like that's where we like to use it for. Now, I'm not saying like you need to use these softwares. What I'm saying is that you need to have processes in place for your operations playbook, for your collaboration hub or your internal communications, and then for your sharing station, which is your external communications. Use whatever softwares or systems that make sense for you, because again, any system can work as long as you use it. Like any system is effective if actually applied. So, but hopefully this helped you guys think through some of the key things that I find have like really limit companies' abilities to grow and scale. If you don't start building out these systems now, then they will limit you into the future. You're going to have to build them at some point. It's either you build them too soon, that's going to cost you money, or you wait till it's too late, and that's going to cost you opportunity. And remember, the greater cost is almost always the opportunity. So I hope this brought you guys value. If it did, let me know. Hit me up on social media. Share this with your friends. I'd love to hear from you guys. And as always, stay hyper-focused, my friend. I'll see you in the next episode.